not too early. I see like much more smiling than I expected. So that's always exciting.
I covered this half of the room.
Yeah, you do that half. So I'm Rosie, and we are so excited to be here. You know, we actually used to live in New York City. Not just in New York City, but quite literally less than 2 blocks away from here. So we are literally back in our old hood.
Yeah.
We are going to talk today about the Gemini Agenda, but first, our Twitter handles, in case you feel so inclined to tweet us.
Yes.
You can also high five later.
Feel free to get involved in this, conversation in a way that might reflect the kind of interactive media landscape we currently operate within. Because unlike brands and consumers, we are very keen to continue the conversation online, offline, elsewhere, and afterwards.
So the last time we had an apartment or home base of any kind was in March of 2013. Since then, we have been entirely nomadic, living out of carry-on bags, traveling around the world, working with brands and clients and companies, startups, rebels, and helping them to solve business problems using creativity.
Let's begin with a slight abstract, shall we? We are after all planners and strategists. When I was an agency person in New York especially, I was occasionally insulted with this kind of accusation levied at me that I was an advertising philosopher. Now, I think this stems from a couple of things. It's quite, I think, a telling insult in some ways, right? Because I think it stems from a couple of systemic issues. One, a misunderstanding of how philosophy works and what it is. Philosophy is a mental model for solving problems, a way of understanding and acting in the world. Therefore, philosophy without practice is meaningless. So the accusation of ivory tower theorists, which you often get, is in some way pointless. But also, I think it does reflect to some degree the persistent strain of anti-intellectualism that runs through American thought. It's especially in this market, very specifically in this market in a way that's not in Europe. In a country full of doers that move fast and break things, what time do we have to ponder the possibilities?
So our philosophy at Genius feels is that originality is a myth, that nothing comes from nothing, you can't invent without inventory, and this philosophy informs our process, and our process informs our products. When we talk about products here, we're not talking about products that you or your clients might have that are sold to consumers. We're talking about strategic products.
Yes. In general, we believe it is advisable to be bored by orthodoxy, to reject orthodoxy, because orthodoxy by its very nature is calcified thinking. It's received wisdom. And as strategists, we do not receive wisdom, we go out and earn it, find it, research it, and prove it.
Agreed. Our ambition here is to create a new cognitive toolkit. And look, we're not just talking about this presentation today. I mean, that is one of our ambitions and passions. This boredom has led to collecting of scraps and straws around the web, stealing genius from around the world, and trying to put this back together to provide cognitive toolkits, frameworks, tools, and templates to hopefully help us run our business better and equally help all of you run your businesses better and our clients as well.
Absolutely. So our content and our consulting, we are very keen to share with what we learn with our tribe. And we grew up mostly in planning functions as media, brand, accounting, and so on and so forth. So, planners are our tribe.
So you can't understand behavior without, planning itself. We're here celebrating the 50th anniversary. In order to change behavior, we have to have that consumer understanding. And when we were asked to speak here, we started thinking about what we might want to talk about, and we came up with this very just key nugget of both wanting to share the stage together.
Absolutely right, yeah. We like to present together. We are a partnership through and through, both married, business, and in our performance. And we both happen to be Gemini, don't we, Rose?
Yeah, we thought, how can we sell this whole thing about being on stage together? Well, Geminis are twins. We can say this duality is really important. We need to be on stage together.
Totally.
We also found that Geminis are quite an eclectic crew. We're not proud of every single Gemini in the world, but, that's a complicated mix up on street. But we started looking more and more into this. If we were going to sell it to the 4As, we had to have some rationale. And it turns out that, all of these traits associated with Geminis actually play really well into the marketing and communication skill set, and specifically for strategists, thoughtful, inherently curious, a way with words.
Especially especially love the thing about the exchange of ideas and communication, right? Not the things themselves, but the movement back and forth, the connections between. That to me feels like a very planary thing, right?
But don't think that we are building ourselves up as if we are all these things, because Faris and I do not believe in any sort of astrological nonsense.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. You know, if I asked you to raise your hands in this room who's a Gemini, I can sort of predict roughly how many there would be, right? That's part of the problem. The astrological impact on personality has very limited evidence for it, and therefore strategically cannot be relied upon.
However, when we were telling one of our more astrologically minded friends, she said, well, of course you don't believe, because Geminis don't believe in astrology.
I'm really lost for words, but what do you do there? I have no way out of that argument.
So instead, we're focusing on this idea of dualities, because we are living in an incredibly polarized culture right now. There are a lot of blacks, a lot of whites, and not a whole lot of grays, and we believe that binaries are dangerous, probably more dangerous than sharks, because who encounter them on a day-to-day basis, and sharks probably less so.
And most sharks are quite nice, to be honest.
Yeah, that is also true.
My personal friend, Sean.
Yeah.
Yeah, but so binaries we think are not just unhelpful and dangerous, they're naive and highly polarizing, right? So a good way of thinking about this is the great debate of what was evolutionary biology, right? There was this whole nature versus nurture construct, which is is nature the determinant impact? Is your genetic code set at birth and the blueprint predicting who you will be in the future? Is there evolutionary and environmental changes that affect you at some deep emotional, behavioural, cognitive, social level? And is there even something called epigenetic drift, where your genome changes based on environment? There is, it turns out. Point being, the answer can't be either. It can't be.
But it's also more than both, we believe. We believe it's more about the way that these dynamic systems interplay with each other.
Yeah, the simplest way of collapsing a naive binary is saying it's not either or both. That's fine. It's okay. It's number one level of nuance. A more interesting way is thinking of interacting elements over time in dynamic systems, which is far more valuable in a real-world situation.
So we came up with a number of binaries that we think are really damning and discouraging, and also dangerous to our industry. And so we're not going to get to talk about all of these today, but we've highlighted a few, and we're going to talk about how we think that it's more than either or, and how the Gemini Agenda could provide a middle way forward.
The middle way, like the Buddha suggested, exactly, yeah. Because it does feel like that the discourse in our industry, like everywhere we go in the world, has begun to reflect the shouty, oppositional nature of politics, and each side of the fence lobbing insults. You know, last week at the lovely APG, the conference they had was called On the Contrary, because apparently contrarianism is now the orthodoxy, which is so confusing in some ways. But that's the whole problem, isn't it? We can't find each other anymore because we're just too busy shouting and saying, oh, this is all stupid or traditional's rubbish.
So we were struck by a recent report that Neil Perkin had shared with us, the AAR report, talking about evolving client and agency models. And the number one thing that clients want today is integration, which is kind of hilarious because in 1990, the number one thing clients wanted was integration.
We haven't made a great deal of progress.
Maybe we need to speed things up on our progress side of things. So let's jump into our binaries to figure out if we can help solve this. I forgot to mention, Faris and I are very energetic. We require some participation. I was going to suggest a light yoga routine to start this off. However, that was poo-pooed. So instead, it will simply be hand raising, which is a form of stretching. How many of you would consider yourselves to be specialists by show of hands? Okay. And how many of you would consider yourself generalists by show of hands? All right, awesome. And a few of both. So we think that specialism occurred because of something very specifically. Up here, I have a chart of what marketing channels looked like in the past 300 years. Now, at the start, we really just, 1700s, really into the 1800s, print. Magazines, newspapers, posters, billboards, and catalogs. Start getting over here, there's a little bit more in store. Okay, we've got TV now and radio here. But the massive tick happens, the exponential growth happens in 1990 when the web is born. And at that point, the channel growth exploded. There were so many channels, we didn't know how to fill them, and we had to build these specialisms so that we could figure out what to put in which channel.
Right, so the hyper-fragmentation of media that occurred around this point, web coming online, guerrilla marketing exploring new opportunities to engage with consumers in non-paid for obvious media placements, led to the formation originally of a new set of skills necessary to manage complexity, to distribute communications at scale to the right people. And so media people hired themselves off from the creative agencies into dependents and then ultimately into standalone businesses, right? Which is super and great, but it also meant that communication strategy was rent asunder, completely tearing it into two different disciplines, essentially, that had two different ways of seeing the world, different tools, and different business models underlying them.
Environments with more competition, it means that we need more specialists. We're fighting more and more for budgets. We're putting strategists to swim upstream to gather more budgets for whoever we might be representing, and that leads to more specialism. Also leads us to our favorite word from the past year and a half. A German word called fuck idiot. Apparently, translated to English, it means subject matter idiot. So we all know the forest, and we all know the phrase, you can't see the forest from the trees, right? When you're so up close, when you're so down your specialist hole, it's hard to make sense of the world around you. Now, when I was looking into this whole specialist versus generalist thing, I found something really interesting, which was a Harvard Business Review study from a couple years ago, where a guy looks at forecasters, predictors. Over the past 20 years, he looks at 250 or so predictors, and he also looks at over 80,000 different predictions to figure out if experts or non-experts are more accurate in making predictions in their field. And it turns out that without a doubt, if you want a bet on a right prediction, non-experts are the best.
Right, but we don't mean just like any old non-experts, right? This isn't like, you know, something simple like picking stocks, where throwing a dart at a dartboard is usually more successful than most of your highly paid financial advisors, even in lovely Wall Street, to be honest, right? That's been proven so many times as to be hilarious. But
he said something very specific. He said, drawing from an eclectic array or traditions that accept ambiguity and the contradictions. Because experts were so focused on something, they weren't able to accurately predict because they weren't willing to acknowledge the complex world that we live in.
yeah, acknowledging ambiguity and contradiction is super important and very difficult if you have a singular mental model by which you operate reality. Specialists, experts, tend to be sure they're right, but they've forgotten the way they think as a singular mental model, and what strategy is really good at, hopefully, is deploying the appropriate mental model for the appropriate problem.
So we love the introduction of a new word for us, the multiplus. And this came from the head of strategy at JWT Sydney, and she says, look, you know, we need a hybrid. We need someone who's mastered multiple areas, interrelated, and can demonstrate how these bits of knowledge work together.
Yeah, hybrid vigor is a well-documented aspect of genetic growth and engineering, right? The smaller the gene pool, the less robust the organism that's produced. The broader the gene pool, the more robust. And equally, the broader the set of experiences and models a strategist has, the more robust their thinking becomes.
So we had a lot of generalists, a few specialists. Next year, let's have a room full of multiplists. All right, creative versus comms. So we have to, when we have a room full of strategists and planners, talk about the difference between strategy and planning, at least for just one slide. Go ahead, sorry.
Well, no, I mean, the words seem to get used interchangeably, which is interesting because they're different words and they probably mean different things. That's sort of how words normally work. And yet, all the heads of planning somehow became chief strategy officers. And I'm like, well, are you doing a different job? Well, not. In which case, what anyway? Yeah.
So thinking about strategy, strategy informs the need for advertising, right? We spawn strategists essentially upstream to try and grab more budgets for whatever business we were running. But at its very root, strategy informs if there's even a need for advertising, right? It might be that you need to reinvest your entire ad budget into a call center, or into a customer service experience, or into an experience UX design, actually. Planning then actually informs the advertising itself.
Right, and that's great and extremely valuable. It's just a different stage or a different process, and depending on who does that will indicate what happens in that process in the next bit. So, yeah, one part of that, obviously, we feel is that we need to heal the rift. We do workshops that have been for the last 5 years with comms planners at creative agencies, creative planners at comms agencies, people who are account planners that don't understand about media, and we have the same conversation quite a lot of the time, which says something like, but I'm not a trained comms planner, I'm not a trained account planner, and I'm like, well, you're either a planner or you're not. Either you do both, or you don't do either, in our opinion, increasingly.
So we have this great blur, right? Because budgets were getting smaller, we wanted more of them, and we started blurring all of our titles. It's not necessarily a bad thing. We have to be as philosophical as we want. We need to be pragmatic as well, and we're not going to always live in an ideological or an ideal world or setting, economically or otherwise. And so thinking about how we can integrate disciplines becomes increasingly important.
Right, and the Great Blur is one of these big macro trends which affects everything, not just job titles in agencies, but also how agencies provide services to their clients. Lots of agencies have begun to escalate their value proposition away from what they do to problem solve in creative ways or something like that, which is sort of what brought them directly into competition with consultancies. We invited them in by doing that. They said, oh, we knew that, they thought, so they came and did that for us a little bit. And equally, the Great Blur led to lots of different pieces of businesses, be it agencies or other things, making content and providing strategic advice around communications and brands and people. So the new competitive set of advertising expanded dramatically since the last time fragmentation and the bifurcation of strategy occurred. And those of you who are strategists, i.e. all of you, maybe not all of you, you know what I mean, probably recognise this as Porter's 5 forces model, which I've used to map against advertising. Isn't that funny? Isn't that? No. Okay. I thought it was great.
So even Google Zoo, who's saying we're not an ad agency, we just create ads, as well as some other things as well. Consulting companies, we're consultancies. Sometimes we create ads too. New model agencies who are doing lots of things and also creating some ads as well. And then publishers themselves, in-house studios. There's a lot to think about. There's more competition, more complexity, and we just did a workshop with work on the rebirth of comms planning because there is a need to tie everything back together.
Right, absolutely. And we've done work with some very large brands that have come to us with exactly this problem. They're like, we have a swathe of roster agencies. We have a number of relationships with big consultancies. We've got studios knocking on our door, an in-house content team that someone built in Madrid. And when do we use which and how and why, and who do we trust the most? And we asked them who to trust, and they all said us, individually, interestingly.
They all said we come first.
Yes, they all want to lead the process. And inevitably, because you're biased towards your bottom line and what you know best, right?
So don't confuse strategy and planning. Know when to leverage each. They're both important disciplines. They can be applied across business importantly. Outputs versus outcomes.
Right.
One of the reasons we get tasked and invited to participate in the types of projects that Faris mentioned is because we aren't incentivized by outputs, we're incentivized by outcomes. What I mean by that is we sell strategy. That is a big part of our business. It's a high margin product for us. It's not an add-on. We're not making something. We're not making a piece of work. We are hopefully changing the business of our clients. Companies don't want ads, they want growth. Advertising is a drill, not a hole, right? Sometimes advertising can help us get to growth, but that is not necessarily what companies are looking for. And then there's the cost plus time business model, which really, we think, disincentivizes us in the industry overall from doing some great work. There was an agency who put on their website, the work, the work, the work. These are the things we care about the most.
Can you debrand it?
I debranded it.
I'm pretty sure they're going to know who it is. Oh,
okay, well, you know, the obsessive focus on the work is great, except for it also means that we're incentivizing long hours and high production budgets instead of the outcomes itself.
There's two different bits, right? Yeah, the business model means that it's better for the bottom line to have really, really long meetings with really senior staff and to take a long time. It's this obsession with the work, this fetishization of the work is fine if we understand that it's a lever, a drill, not what people need or want.
So let the creatives fetishize the output. Let them, think about every single conjunction, every pixel, but don't fetishize outputs at the expense of the outcomes. As strategists, as planners, we should be the ones that are fetishizing the outcomes. All right. Looks like we've got a pretty mixed room here, but let's just do a show of hands participation break. How many men do we have here today? If you're a dude or identify as a dude, great.
Gender's fluid.
If you are a lady who runs Goro, raise your hand.
See, that looks about right.
I love this audience right now. We definitely have more women than men.
Which is, statistically speaking, accurate. There's usually more
Which is
female
awesome.
strategists than males get paid more.
And I'm,
It's true. It's just true.
So you might be tired of hearing about gender diversity, but in the U.S., this Western market, we're more progressive. We actually are doing a whole lot better than the rest of the world. It's still something that we have to think about and focus
Some
on.
complain that feminism has gone too far. It has not. Religious mongers and other movements on earth kill people. Feminism uses words and ideas to change the way we see gender. Let's contextualize it. Feminism is the only movement on earth that affects 49% of the population, or 48% in India, because we killed 1% of them, and 0.5% left for Canada to be with him. Justin Trudeau, who has 50% women in his cabinet, and when asked why,
Because it's 2015.
in this regard, maybe in your country it was 2015, not sure about you.
But it's not just that it's 2015 or 2018, and it's not just that basic human decency suggests equality is a good thing. It's that we're strategists, right? And so we apply what we know about the world to make businesses better. And we will impress upon you a couple times in the next 5 or so minutes to think about strategically at 3 layers, right? Think about your career strategically, think about your company, your agency, how it makes money strategically, and about your clients and how they make money strategically, right? So our clients here, I mean, the great work of the 3% conference, we're very big fans of CAT, we love the work they do. The clients are here asking, years after that launched, still this year, 2018, to get rid of stereotypes from our communications, right? That's what clients are coming to us for and saying this should be different.
I love that, some research said only 5% of women strongly agree that advertisers understand what they find attractive or sexy, which I think has to be true because I also found this research saying that the best foreplay for women is actually chore play, or when a man does household chores without being asked.
I'm
I
very
didn't think you
keen
were
on
a
that.
sex tip at the start of your day in a strategy conference, but there you go. I've not seen many sexy men doing household chores in advertising, but I'm certainly welcome to seeing more of that.
Yeah, it's funny because the industry says things like sex sells quite a lot, right? But clearly it's not selling to 95% of women. So who's that sex sells referring to, I wonder? We might see in a second.
And one of the things that I would like to make a point of here is that it's not just about being fair and trying to be more diverse. It quite literally is a business case. So the Peterson Institute for International Economics, they said that if you have at least 30% of women in leadership positions or in your C-suite, it leads to a 6% in net increase in net profit margin. So absolutely something that is crucial to performance, not just to optics.
And for us in our career, I mean, I think, thinking about your career, one of the sad things, I guess, about a planner and agency is that we don't get to work in partnerships like our creative brethren do, right? We always felt a little jealous about that. The great thing that Burnback did was say, what if you two sit together and have a chat over stuff for a bit? Brilliant, genius thinking, right? We don't get to do that for various reasons, and I find that to be a paucity because I take extreme pleasure and I learn so much working hand in fist day in day with Rosie, and my appreciation of I'm not ever going to be as good at thinking about being a woman as Rosie is, right? And that's really helpful because, I can talk to her about it directly without having to arrange a meeting or some research or whatever.
So mutual respect and appreciation is required not just at work, but actually in the work that we do. And I think that's something that we also need to be talking about. It's not just having a woman sitting at the table for the sake of diverse representation, but diverse representation is important because it affects and impacts the work that we create. All right, young versus old. How many of you are under the age of 30 by show of hands? Okay, put your hands down. If you are over the age of 30, put your hands up. If you are over the age of 40, keep your hands up. If you're over the age of 50, keep your hands up. Okay, amazing. We, as an industry, need to respect our elders. And not just in the, southern way. But honestly, it is absolutely incredibly disappointing to look at how our age gaps are in our agencies. We have less than 5%, this is actually for the UK. In America, it's less than 5% over the age of 50 who are represented in the agency world.
Right. So one important consideration there, just thinking strategically about your career, right, is that the vast majority of you won't be working at agencies over the age of 50.
Unless we make some changes.
That's just maths, so think about that, right?
And if you look at workforce by sector, a lot of other industries are not in the same position as advertising. They actually understand that the older you get, the more expertise you have, and that this is something that can be leveraged for business practice.
And you can charge more for it because they have expertise. So traditionally, you know, the word strategy, strategos, the art of the general, most generals tended to be older soldiers that hadn't died, proof is in the pudding, right? Young soldiers tended not to be generals so early because they didn't know a lot about how to be, they didn't know it. So you see how that maybe would be a good thing for us to think about.
So we have to stop perpetuating negative stereotypes in ageism. It's not just, again, this is about not just having the representation at the table, but thinking about the work we create, because this is a huge buying power, and we have all these ideas of what people look like when they get over 50, and frankly, it's just not true. We took one of our clients to Burning Man, he was 50, he threw down harder than us.
He did. He broke his wrist in 2 places. Good times, good times.
So, look, we gotta, get away from this whole idea that once you grow up, you're not welcome in our industry. We need to learn to leverage and monetize that experience. So, let's wrap this up.
All right, great. I think one interesting indication, right? We are a planning, strategy-led consultancy, and we meet people like us everywhere we go. Lots and lots of extremely senior planners that have no longer found rooms for themselves at agencies have started shops that mostly operate as a strategy and planning function, and they seem to be economically viable, most running for at least 5 years like we have been. Most of these have been, not all of them. But, so there is a business model out there, there's a market out there that charges for strategy, and clients are paying for it.
And brands are going to continue to need strategists. It's just that where they work or how we might think about employment might change. Maybe, the future of strategy and planning doesn't lie in traditional communications agencies.
Yeah, at least not solely. And we think this is a celebration, right? This is the 50th anniversary of planning, a discipline grown up inside advertising, and God bless it. But it's now relevant in so many places, right? It's in clients and technology companies and consultancies and media shops. The skills of planning and strategy are now much broader and more applicably useful than they ever have been. So, like, for all of you, future's going to be awesome.
Yeah, don't worry. Everything is going to be amazing. Remember that philosophy informs your process is going to inform your products. Binaries are naive and way more dangerous than sharks. The fragmentation of media in the 1990s led to that rise in specialists.
But the more specialists they have, the more you need a generalist to put them back together.
Strategy is not planning.
But it informs the planning, strategy informs the need for advertising.
So cut out the marketing nonsense because companies want growth, not advertising. Remember that diversity is better business. So embrace those differing perspectives, young, old, male, female, everything, not either or, but how they work together. Learn to effectively leverage and monetize your expertise.
And then think strategically about the present and the future of your career and how your agency is going to live and make money and how your clients are going to live and make money. All 3 layers are always going to be important.
But most importantly, critical thinking is required. Don't just rely on your horoscope. So with that, we wanted to have, while we have your attention, a quick shout out to say thank you for voting for us as one of the popular online community resources for strategists. If you didn't vote for us, then maybe you should subscribe to our newsletter and at this link here, and then we can perhaps inspire you and you can inspire us, and then it won't be either or, it will be both, and we'll all live together in an amazing world.
Hey!
If you would like to come hear us talk in more detail instead of just big picture trends, we're going to be talking about briefs at 11, I think, in this room. So thank you guys very much for your time.